Well, here we are, back at it once more, finally with a good old-fashioned thrift store game hunting. I want to clear up some loose ends real quick. A few of you have reached out to me concerned about my health and was wondering if the slowdown of my uploads is due to that. My response is yes and no. Really, it's complicated, but long story short, I did have a major health scare recently. Again, I was hospitalized, I was treated, well, sort of. Different, even longer story, but I am doing better. And yes, videos are going to start coming by more frequent as I continue to improve in my health. That's all I'm going to say about the matter. Maybe I'll talk more about it in a separate video, but for now, let's find some damn games. Or at least something mildly interesting to look at. On our first stop is a location I don't think I've been to in maybe half a year, if not longer, but we needed to stop by the store down the road, so figured, well, why the hell not? They did have a selection of games, sort of, mostly sports like usual for this location, and various random PC games. I don't have this Crouching Tiger game, seen it numerous times elsewhere, but never pulled the trigger, and I guess that's going to continue since the Mummy DVD was inside. Not sure what type of person listens to Brooks Dunn and plays Unreal Tournament, but I think I'd really like to meet them. Such a weird mix. I probably would have grabbed this if I didn't already own the Ultimate Collector's Pack that comes with this and like 16 other games. It's Goodwill bin time. Got a terrible GameStop controller here for dirt cheap on the PS2. Well, the buttons are fine, but the analogs are terrible enough to make me want to puke. Well, more than normally at least. Let's see what we have. Xbox 360 power adapter covered in a bizarre sticky substance I want nothing to do with. There's also this HDMI splitter for $4. Truth be told, I actually really need one of these, although I hear splitters sometimes destroy the picture quality, and I didn't exactly trust one from a Goodwill that had absolutely zero branding on it. I don't know if anyone has experience with splitters that can tell me if they do truly destroy picture quality. I would love to know. Oh god, not another Elite Forces game. If you remember in the last episode, I grabbed that Normandy one for dirt cheap, and it's like, it's close to being one of the worst games I've ever played. And this is apparently the second Vietnam game that they made. How'd they even got the funds to make a second one, let alone any of the other games in the entire series, is beyond me.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
I don't know what it is about these old bedside type clocks or radios, but thrift stores are just known for being full of them. You can usually find typical boring ones like this, but then you might come across some more interesting ones, like this General Electric radio from the 70s, and this one from Sound Design that plays cassette tapes, which is, I believe, from the 80s. Possibly. Maybe. I don't really know, I'm just guessing. Shockingly, some way, somehow, I ran into several games at this Goodwill. Prices did jump up from this location from $2 to $4, but they're still cheaper than the other Goodwill a few miles down the road that charges damn near $8 for one game. I immediately grabbed Create, Bloodstone 007, and Final Fantasy X and X-2. There were a few others I debated on, like that PS4 Lego game and the Jurassic World one, but I decided against them because, well, I've played a bunch of Lego games in the past and never really enjoyed any of them. Oh, and it's worth noting that the games that I grabbed were not only complete, but the discs and the manuals were in perfect shape. For a thrift store, that's almost unheard of.
Wow!
I went back to the bins of random cords and controllers and found 2 PlayStation Move controllers for $5 a piece. They're slightly dirty, but nothing that can't be cleaned easily. My guess is that the person who had these used them for the PS4 VR. Either way, $10 together for both is a really good deal. I'm pretty sure these go for $15 to over $20 a piece. Outside of the little kid firing off the F word like he was in a Tarantino movie, there really wasn't a whole lot going on at this Goodwill. A couple of sports titles here, and StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty expansion complete in the box for a few dollars. But I've said this before, my knowledge of PC games is trash at best. I know that StarCraft was, or maybe still is, a popular game. That being said, I have a sneaking suspicion that this expansion isn't really worth anything. I caught this at the corner of my eye and saw that HP's logo was on it and was curious. Turns out it's an old scientific calculator from the late 80s. Scientific calculators, for whatever reason, always tend to sell for a lot of money, and this one, having that little slipcase, actually makes this worth around $30 to $40. I don't normally buy things like this, but I could actually use it at my job because I hate using the one that's on my phone, so it's not really a bad deal. Went back to my usual Goodwill, and they changed up where they put the games, which is kind of nice since you usually have to fumble around in the DVD area for like 15 minutes just trying to find one game. The only 2 games I thought about was the Monopoly Collection and that Nerf 2-pack for the Wii. I don't know, for $4, I really didn't think it was worth it, until I got home and realized, oh god, that Monopoly game is worth around $15, and the Nerf one is actually around $10. I kind of regret that one, but yeah, it happens. I ended up stopping by a few days later just for shits, and it turns out that the games were still there. Also, I overheard that today was a 40% off day. So, I guess I lucked out by not buying the games the first go around. $5 for both of them is not a bad deal at all. Okay, what are the chances of coming across a brand new LEGO Technic set at a Goodwill? What's even crazier is that this thing, not only is it 25 years old, but I had this exact one growing up. I deeply considered buying it, but the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm buying this because of nostalgia and not even because it's something that I actually even want. If it was something that, yes, I grew up with and flat out love, for example, like the old Star Wars models or even some of the Alien models from the late 90s, then I would have bought them in a heartbeat without even thinking about it. Still, this is very cool to come across and incredibly rare, especially at a Goodwill. The half-price books clearance section by me is always hit or miss. Some days you'll find nothing but junk, but then a week or 2 later it's like finding gold in a sense. There were a few games I would have grabbed had I not already owned them, like Gears of War Judgment and Halo 4. They were only $3 as well. I'm a little bit pissed at myself for not seeing that PUBG PS4 game. Maybe I did at the time and thought that I owned it. Who knows? Wow, a boxed Fusion controller for the 360. Does anyone in the world remember this thing? It was like $100 brand new when it came out. I actually used one on the PS3 a long time ago for a video on third-party controllers and how they affect your accuracy over official first-party ones. And you'd think for $100 it'd be halfway decent. The problem though, and what plagued just about every single third-party controller, was how awful the analogs were. The dead zone, the sensitivity issues, you name it. I wonder if that same issue plagued the 360 controller market. I don't know what that was about either. Why was it so difficult to make good analogs? This used to be a good spot to find games way back when. Unfortunately, I have not found anything at this location in quite a long time. Yeah, they typically always have oddball PC games like this, but no one ever buys them unless they're on a half-off day. I know this probably sounds weird, but I've come across so many Turtle Beach headphones at Goodwills. More than you could ever imagine, really. I don't ever mess around with them. A lot of the reason for that is because of all the gaming headsets I've ever used Turtle Beaches tend to be the least reliable, but oddly enough, their sound quality is actually excellent. Like, I have a pair of Astros, and they're built like a tank, though in my opinion the sound quality isn't anywhere near as nice as a higher-end pair of Turtle Beaches. Either way, the chance of finding a working pair in good shape at a Goodwill is questionable at best. I've done shoutouts for my buddy Yhama in the past, and today is no different. The only exception is that he's released Season 2 of his clothing collection, and boy, does he have some sweet designs, like my personal favorite that he calls Project Overlord. He's got a bunch of other great designs that he created himself, and I know a lot of you gamers out there enjoy anime as well, including me, and his clothing is heavily inspired by anime, gaming, and various other forms of nerdy stuff that people like us are into. Let's face it. Check it out. I highly encourage it. In fact, I have a discount code for 10% off your entire order, which is pretty sweet if you ask me. Link for that is in the description below. Save yourself a bit of money. Why not? Because I was in the area, I figured I'd stop by Disc Replay. Their selection is normally good, but lately I've noticed a weird trend in their pricing. Like, games that I can normally find for a few bucks are now $5+. But then you'll come back in like a month or two and those same titles will drop down in price. It's really weird. This time around, I was coming across things that I did want to buy, but I really wasn't wanting to pay as much as they wanted for them. Case in point is something like this, a Gran Turismo 2. I normally come across these for like anywhere from $3 to $5, and 15 is a little bit of a stretch to say the least. Because of that, I didn't really pick up anything this time around, with the exception being this, Katamari Forever on the PS3. I've always loved the Katamari games. I've always been a big fan of them ever since they first came out when I was in, I think, junior high. God, that makes me feel old. Anyway, Katamari Forever is an excellent game, and possibly my favorite in the entire series, so I had to get it. It's been quite a long time since we popped by this pawn shop, and they usually have a bunch of games, and their prices can either be good or terrible at $10 each. There wasn't really anything screaming at me, you know, things that I absolutely had to have, except for Forza Horizons 3 and 4. I love the Forza games, always have, and Horizon series is just an absolutely wonderful one. Just bear in mind the microtransactions are a little bit disgusting, but not to the degree of something like a free-to-play game or anything like that. $10 isn't like an amazing deal or anything, but I recently came across them for around $20 both at GameStop and Disc Replay. So it's not a bad deal. Either way, I'm not mad. Alright, this is awesome. Randomly out of nowhere, at a Burlington of all stores, I turned my head to see a handful of various large video game wall art. A lot of it was Sonic, but they did have a few others like Mario Kart, this unfortunately destroyed Pac-Man one, and a couple of prints that had, well, awful cringy text with whatever game controller thrown in. Like this one here as a prime example.
I don't need to get a life. I'm a gamer. I have a lot of lives.
It doesn't even make any sense. If you couldn't tell, I hate these things with a passion. I'm a sucker for stuff like this, especially more interesting ones like the few that I picked up. I already have a couple at home that I got like 10 years ago, ironically, from the same company, but hey, I think these things are sweet, and for the price I paid, who could possibly complain? A few months back, I found another Sonic one at that same Burlington store. I don't know why this store has stuff like this, but I'm not complaining. In fact, I should probably check by more often, honestly. You know, I've always wanted to play this game. I remember playing it at a friend's house a long time ago. $3 for it? Complete? Is not too shabby. Remember how I said their clearance section is hit or miss? Well, this day was a definite hit. Injustice Ultimate Edition, Division 2, whatever the hell Deformers is. Yeah, this isn't half bad at all. Prices went up an extra $1 for the PS4 and Xbox One games, which is kind of weird, but whatever, that's fine. They had a lot of Xbox One games that I would have loved to have grabbed, like Watch Dogs, Legion, Battlefield 5, and a few others, but I'd rather have them on PlayStation 4. That's just a personal preference, so I decided to skip out on those. Their regular game selection isn't even that bad, but their prices are all over the place. Resident Evil 6 Archives isn't bad for $10, although they left disc replay's $4 tags still on it. I probably wouldn't have done that just because it seems like an argument waiting to happen. But then you have two completely different prices on Borderlands, which doesn't even account for the one that was in the clearance section for $4. They did have Body Count on the 360 for $20. It's something that I really want badly, but for the PS3, and I'd love to make a review for it. If I remember, it was one of those games that had a great idea, but the execution was absolutely horrific. From what I understand, it was supposed to be some sort of spiritual successor to the game Black, a highly praised gritty FPS with excellent graphics for its time. If anyone has a copy of this for PlayStation and doesn't want it, I'm all ears because I would kill to make a video on this game. They also had a shelf full of Atari games, something I don't ever recall this location having prior, so I imagine someone must have offloaded a collection's worth. Most of the games I was coming across were either $1 or $2. It's not a half bad price at all if you're looking to get into Atari games, but then a lot of the carts showed very significant signs of damage, one of which had its front label completely ripped off. Not all of them were like that, to be fair. Though Atari games are not really my thing. They fit a super niche crowd these days. I can appreciate the games, but at this moment, I find them more to be interesting than desirable. Well guys, there you have it. I'm pretty happy with the things I found. Seems like games are finally starting to make their way back into thrift stores again. There was a rough period for like 2 years where I just couldn't find a damn thing other than maybe a sports title or two. Hell, I was having a hard time finding anything worth talking about, period, but I'm really happy with how this one turned out. I do have plans on making these videos a little bit more frequent as long as stores have stuff to talk about, and I do have plans to go to the flea market once the weather gets better, so stay tuned for that. But for now, on to the slideshow. Take care guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.